Welcome to the Black Girl Flow podcast. We are about cultivating joy, growth, and success in our life, love, and identity. So join us as we find our flow. Everybody, welcome back to the Black Girl Flow podcast. You know, I really can't go much farther without just thanking you for being here. You know, like the people that choose to spend time with us, me and my colleagues have really been reflecting on like it's important to be with people who want to be with you. So if we haven't said that to all of our listeners, all of those in the BGF community, just thank y'all. And I really hope that y'all are finding just a little bit of sunshine in this springtime. How's that feel, Liv?
That felt so good. I'm like, wow. I'm just grateful to be here in space with you all as well.
Like sometimes we just kind of have to sit in that moment of like, good people.
Right, exactly. Like literally it feels like when you're a little kid and you've got a kumbaya circle going on. And I'm like, I'm with my favorite people.
Yes, that's how I'm coming into the space today, is being like, I get to be with my favorite people.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited. We know what we're in Aries season. So cheers to all the Aries. Y'all have really been giving just all the things life is supposed to give. Just
excellence.
The good vibes, the excellence, the full send,
go getter.
The lots of like belly laughters I've been feeling. Just true spring vibes. So yes to the Aries.
Aries season has brought in better blessings than I would say.
The expectation was low, but it has been great.
Yeah, but I told myself, I was like, April is gonna be a good month, and I just kept telling myself, and I feel like it's coming into fruition.
It is.
I mean, I think that I can just see myself in Duke Gardens, just like laid out.
Yes.
Maybe even a sketchbook or like something to fiddle with my hands, music playing. Like that's the type of vibe that I'm curating in April. So I just feel really good and like gushy.
I really, really love that. Okay, well, it's been a minute since we've just gotten to be with the listeners and get to chat it up. So I'm super pumped for this episode, but obviously we can't get it started without our little pulse check.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling, like I said, I'm feeling really enthusiastic about April. I think in March and February, I had some like really introspective questions that I think I needed to figure out when it came towards my direction and path. I think that's just something about like being in your 20s. You're always like, when you're dissatisfied in one area, you're like, okay, what's the next move forward?
That's so
and what's
relatable.
the path forward?
Yeah.
And so I had been experiencing that. And I was having this conversation with my friend Arobasa, shout out to you, girl. And we were talking about career and just feeling like, oh my gosh, is this the career path that I'm going to stick in for the rest of my life? Like, I'm not sure if this is, this is what I intended. And she told me that it's really important to just figure out the skills that you'd like to cultivate rather than figuring out the next career move, because it's so easy to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not enjoying what I love right now. Why not switch to a different career?
180.
Yeah, just 180 and like start going to grad school or investing in a boot camp. When in reality, when you think about it on a more granular scale of what skills you like to cultivate, it helps kind of lay out, okay, well, I can do whatever career path requires these skills. And it's not like narrowing into one. So I've been feeling really liberated in that. And I've been, just like investing in the different skill sets that I have been called to, which is, pretty much same old, photography, videography, things like that.
Getting called back to.
Getting called back to. Yes, really important.
And we're going to tease that out a little bit in a few when we dive right into the topic. I love that. I really love to hear that. Yeah. January, February, March was a doozy. Just the beginning of the year. Like this has felt like 5 years in one. So it's been nice to have a little bit of a slower pace to the start of this month. And was, like I said, just really filled with a lot of good emotions and moments and laughter and just some like really great things that we've been talking about wanting to do, or things that have been in the lineup but just not having the time or the space, or it wasn't the time or the space yet. So I feel like I've just been really grateful for having those like fun little moments and getting to see my people start to settle into their things.
I know. And we also, if you're new to the podcast, you're now just hearing that me and Lexi live together. So we cohabitate. We do the podcast. We do so many things together. Yes. And we recently we've decided that we're trying to do more like home events, like with our community in Durham.
Hosting with the mosting.
And it's just been really fun also diving into that. So that's why I'm like, April is just bringing really good vibes.
It really has.
We hope that if your April is, starting off slow or maybe not starting off on the right path, that you're finding solace in like the little things that bring you joy and gratitude.
Yeah. Which we could get into the whole, like, this is just a really interesting time in general. Just because it's like, it's Ramadan, it's Easter, it's springtime. Like, I think a lot of people feel the resurgence and the kind of new energy that comes with this, which kind of segues us perfectly into the episode topic.
Yeah. And so today I think that it would be really cool for us to get more into this idea of reimagining our life, because again, we're raised to think that we have one particular path and that we're supposed to hit these marks. And sometimes we don't take a beat to actually figure out what we want, who we are. And sometimes, I think most of the time, we don't have the tools to also dive deeper into the practice of just becoming more self-aware and more introspective, because we're focused on these very capitalistic strategic points of being like, okay, well, I'll be able to reimagine my life when I make a certain amount of money, or I'll be able to create
the carrots
this dream
on the stick. Like, you're never really gonna get them, but they're here as that like weird timetable and benchmark for your success.
Absolutely. And I think that it's really important that we ground ourselves in our desires and where our soul kind of calls us to. And we had an episode way back when on this idea of self-work and like soul work and how they intertwine. But I think that just laying the groundwork for what even reimagining your life could look like will help us in figuring out the path forward and the people and the community that we truly envision for ourselves.
Yeah. And I think I've been really playing around with this idea too, because, this idea of finding inspiration and also making time for yourself to daydream, like when you're talking about, oh my gosh, I want to just be rolling around in, a park with my friends, and kind of having that, like, those being the tools of just really sitting and envisioning for yourself. And I was actually listening to a podcast that was talking about this idea of daydreaming, which I'm just like not a very visual person like that. I'm very, and this is a difference between Liv and I and pretty much every Capricorn in my life who has a very clear
vision.
Vision is crystal clear. And they were talking about like daydreaming is really this idea of a radical imagination, like picking something that is so far-fetched and just idealizing that. So they were like, they give an example of like, I'm daydreaming of just like being an astronaut, and that being a part of their meditation. They're like, by no means, like, I am not an engineer, nor do I have the desire to be that, but sitting with the idea of how would my life look differently, or what would I be experiencing with that vantage point, got me just so curious in that idea. Because sometimes when I'm thinking about my path forward, I often just go to what I have already seen in life. And that's not all that's possible for me. And so I really want to make sure that I'm pushing myself to think even beyond just the kind of physical landmarks or benchmarks or expectations that are put on me, to really say, like, could I be missing out an iteration of my life if I was a ballerina and starring in the Nutcracker? And what part of that would make me tingle to get to that idea you were talking about, like, what are the skills and the actual way we want to feel in our life? So I've really been pushing myself to step into this.
Is it uncomfortable for you?
I don't necessarily think it's uncomfortable. I think it's just not the norm. It's not the first thing that we're doing. Like, we're very quick to make our list of our goals and set our own pace and benchmarks for things. So I think it's just always the last step that I'm thinking like, oh, well, what's the value in me doing that? Because I'm not an astronaut and I'm not, and we've talked about it before of just like that growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be what you want to do right now. It's just pushing us to think outside of the box, which is something that I deeply am committed to.
That's so interesting. And I ask that because it makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, speak on that.
It makes me like almost like my throat closes up sometimes, or at least it did before I kind of got more comfortable with this idea of imagining, because I think it's a really brave thing to dream and want more for yourself. And when you say to yourself, oh, well, I want to be a millionaire, it's like, well, do I deserve that? Is that for me? All of the limiting beliefs that I think, that I subconsciously might think about myself or that I've been told kind of creeps in. And then I'm like, I think I'll just kind of like see where things go, where like my life. And it wasn't until last year where I was, at my last job and I was just kind of waking up and doing what I was told, that I realized that I was on autopilot. Ooh. And having that like coming to yourself, like pressing the button and really and seeing yourself from like this very distant view of like, wait, that's literally me going throughout my day on autopilot. And I haven't checked in with myself in a long time. And how am I even feeling? Because we go through so much of our day when people ask us how we are, we just kind of say whatever, but
fine, good, keeping it pushing, rolling with the punches, whatever it is.
There's always some sort of thing to kind of get somebody else to leave us alone so we don't have to go deeper with how we were feeling. But it was just one of those moments where I was like, whew. And since then, I'm like, I cannot continue to go through life on autopilot, because life is going to pass me by and I'm going to wake up and I think I'd just be really miserable looking back on my life, knowing that I didn't try to make things that younger me really wanted to have happen. And that's been the motivating factor, but moving through that is really uncomfortable for me.
I appreciate you talking about that, because it reminds me of this idea of we do have to step outside of our comfort zone. And our comfort zone is not just like, oh, I want to do this or I don't want to do this. Sometimes it really does show up in our subconscious, just like how we're operating on a day-to-day, because of the long laundry list of things we have to do, or, people that we're accountable to and kind of dictating where we're supposed to go. But that moment and recognition of, oh my gosh, I think I've been in cruise control for a while. Yeah. And so the question is like, how do you re-spark that inspiration from that moment of recognizing, wow, I've kind of been going with the flow and maintaining the status quo for my life? How do you find inspiration again to get to the point where you're at right now, saying like, I think I'm getting called back and into these modes that, are my art, my craft?
I think that's a great question. And for me, it was looking at what areas of my life am I dissatisfied in. Oh. And so it's first like acknowledging which spaces, because it's not that I live a bad life. It's just that how can I restructure my life to be even more joyous, even more abundant? And so for me last year, that a big part of my life that I had a lot of dissatisfaction was my career path. It was because of the role, but it was also because of the salary, and it was because of just different variations of what I felt like I had to do day to day. And so I had to write down in my journal, well, what job would make me happy? Like, is it just the money that's gonna make me happy?
Which sometimes it is, y'all.
And sometimes and literally sometimes it is, or is it the fact that I wish I was traveling more? Like, understanding the pinpoint of the issue. And once you understand the pinpoint of the issue, talking to people that or that you see in your network have are doing the things that you would like to do. That doesn't necessarily mean the exact same thing, because for a lot of us, you're right, we don't have that North Star, that one person.
Yeah.
But it's like, I heard that this person has had experience in X, Y, and Z, or they might have freelanced it in the past. Can I learn more about their experience doing that? And from there, it's just kind of a snowball effect, because when you hear other people and you get to hear their resources, then there might be a book, or there might be a podcast, or there might be a TED Talk that gives you more insight. And it's about that curiosity that leads you to the reimagining your life. And oftentimes, even last year, I was like, maybe I'll do this career path. And then through talking to enough people, I was like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And so you have to just kind of follow in, what is it? The Wizard of Oz, kind of like that yellow brick road that will lead you to understanding what you like and what you don't like. Because I was even talking to
that's a great visual of like the Wizard of Oz. How it's this like fictional, out of pocket place, but every character, every part of it is representative of something deeper.
Absolutely. And I was talking to my brother the other day, and he was like, I just know I'm so indecisive. And I was like, it's not necessarily that you're indecisive. Like, it's just that you're figuring out what you like and what you don't like. Yeah. And when you know what you like and what you don't like, then you're less indecisive, because you'll pick it. But like, it's all about the way that you frame it.
Oh my gosh, I want to live as my big sister.
Please.
Oh my gosh, how would my life have changed had somebody told me that, invited me into that space earlier.
Yeah.
Of saying it's okay to be wandering right now.
Absolutely.
And wander with curiosity, not aimlessly, because we don't want to just get caught up in any wave or any motion of somebody else's frequency, but wander and being curious and interacting with the world around us gives us the insight that will lead us forward, which
Absolutely.
I think should be really liberating, which I think is the core idea and sense of daydreaming and finding inspiration, is just that ability to hold on.
Oh, it might just be. Okay, cool.
But that might just be exactly what we need to be doing in that moment. And being stuck in that discomfort, this can be an avenue that can help us explore what's next. And I know for myself, like in these moments and stuff, I do get really curious, and I have to go back to like the basics. Like I have to find joy in like tiniest little interactions or observations of the world, because I do get stuck in the loop of the monotony of things. And a lot of the work I do is so like big picture, like it's so systemic, it's so analytical, it's so deeply entwined with like societal things that I have to quite literally bring myself back down to like watching the flowers bloom, because if I don't, I'll just be stuck in the clouds, and in the clouds it feels like you're truly lost. And so even those same type of curiosities of like, what is my ideal career path and what is my ideal, next steps, I have to go back to that space of just being really, really curious about the tiniest of things.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I struggle with like looking at it as granular as you're saying. I'm a big picture person, and it can be very overwhelming figuring out exactly how to go about it, how to tackle the beast, even as I'm figuring out the skill sets that I'd like to cultivate. When you're younger, you just kind of go for it. But when you're older, you want to make this whole strategic outline and business plan for how to go about your dreams. Yeah. And that just sounds like a lot of fatigue.
It does.
Because it's
such a scam. Like, can we just acknowledge that it is like one of the biggest lies we've been told? Because
we don't want to look like we're bad at something. We don't want to, we don't want to be the...
But look bad to who? Because I think about that. That's actually funny, because my boyfriend will talk about on our very first date. And I distinctly remember saying this, and he literally looked at me differently. And after that, I was like, okay, that's when he was definitely like, he knew he wanted to date me. But after that moment, I was like, I was telling him about my hobbies, and I was like, I'm crocheting, I do podcasts, blah, blah. And I was like, I think everybody should be bad at something. Like, yeah, I think it's okay to be bad and to just try and just learn something. Like, I'm not an acclaimed crocheter, like have the world's best this side or the other, but I think it's okay to be bad. And he was like, that's so unique. And I was like, why is that? Like, that shouldn't be the case. Why can't we be bad at something?
It's not necessarily that we like, why can't we? It's just the secondhand embarrassment of being the one person that's bad at something, or maybe not necessarily bad, but like learning.
Yeah.
When you're at the age where it's like, why didn't you cultivate that when you were younger? You know what I mean? It's kind of the same way that we shame older rappers, you know. It's kind of like, you know, they find enjoyment in it, but why are you this age still trying to pursue a rap career? Where it's like, hey, if that brings that person, we're judging each other, but we're judging ourselves as well, because it's like we know that we judge other people for doing that exact same thing.
Wow. Well, I say, we find the community that we
to hell with it.
We write it down.
To hell with those narratives.
I think that's even more important than that. Not only daydreaming for yourself and finding inspiration, but doing it with community that you don't feel like you're being judged by.
1000%.
That can hold your dreams together with you, because it really isn't, you're not going to go at life alone. You know, Liv and I are the biggest testament. We were just talking over breakfast of like, you couldn't have even told us that this is the way we would be living our life. Mm-hmm. And so that was a dream. We are in that dream. So we have to make sure that we keep dreaming with other people that let us be our full selves.
1000%. I couldn't have said it any better. And I hope that y'all take time to just find maybe one thing that you are interested in, maybe from a young age or recently, that sparked your curiosity, and dig a little deeper into it. Figure out ways that you can, you know, incorporate that more into your daily, weekly, or maybe even monthly routine. And it doesn't even have to be something that you do alone. Grab a friend, do something cool. Like, it's about those little whimsical things that just bring life to life, you know, that just make life so colorful and worth living and diving into. So with that being said,
can't wait to hear y'all.
I know, with that being said, enjoy the rest of spring. We will see you guys again soon. Peace, love, blessings. Catch you guys later.
Bye, y'all.